Well, the U.S. and its allies contemplating the next move after North Korea tests its sixth and most powerful bomb to date. This as new reports surface that the rogue nation is preparing for more missile tests and threatening to send, quote, gift packages to the U.S. So what options truly are on the table? Here to weigh in, retired Green Beret commander and former counterterrorism advisor to Vice President Cheney, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz. Colonel, thanks for joining us this morning. You say there are many different avenues, but specifically, you've got a diplomatic avenue, you've got a military avenue, and economic avenues. What in particular in each one of those lanes can the U.S. do to prevent Kim Jong-un from getting exactly what he wants?
Well, there's some things that we can do, I think, to change the Chinese calculus, and they are key here.
And that'd be the diplomatic side.
That'd be on the diplomatic side, that's right. You know, the Chinese are trying to have it both ways. On the one hand, they agree with us in public and they agree to sanctions, but on the other hand, you know, they don't really enforce the sanctions because they are afraid that if they choke North Korea off, economically, that the regime will collapse. We'll have a unified peninsula that's friendly to the United States right on Chinese borders. So how do we change that calculus, both diplomatically and then eventually militarily, so that they see North Korea as more of a problem that it's worth and they take meaningful action?
So you said, how do you squeeze China? Just briefly on that. I mean, what more can be done to bring them to that table?
Well, militarily, a couple of things. One, South Korea has asked for tactical nukes, for the United States to look at reintroducing tactical nuclear weapons back into the South Korean peninsula. We had pulled them out under Bush Sr., and the South Korean defense minister recently asked for us to put those back in. Secondly, the Japanese are looking to hugely modify and increase the lethality of its military. Its constitution constrains, its post-World War II constitution, constrains the Japanese from taking offensive military action. I think if we look at both of those things in a serious way, that will in a big way wake the Chinese up to where they look at a changing regional dynamic, its adversaries and its rivals, the South Koreans and the Japanese, backed by the United States, starting to step things up to where they look at continuing the status quo with North Korea as more of a problem than it's worth. And I think it's only then will they start to take meaningful action. You
mentioned the military side, TAC nukes as a potential first strike capability or a response. We're doing a lot of military exercises in the region. Is that effective as a show of force, or is that only forcing Kim Jong-un to go faster so that he can sort of preempt our preemption on the military side?
I think it's a response that we have to have and that we have to make to show our capability. But Pete, to be honest with you, we've been doing this for years, this kind of tit-for-tat and war games. But I think, and I don't think that the North Koreans are going to respond to that. Who we need to respond are the Chinese. And if the Chinese see Japan rearming in an offensive way, and they see TAC nukes getting back into South Korea in ways that they seriously don't like, then that may change the calculus enough to where they take action against Kim Jong-un and either force him to stop or force regime change in North Korea in Chinese terms, so that allays some of their fears but stops this march towards what could be a horrible war on the peninsula.
So you talked about the diplomatic and military options. The economic side is where you can really put the squeeze to North Korea vis-a-vis China as well. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, we have just started, and we being the Treasury Department, sanctioning Chinese entities and Russian entities, both banks and individuals and companies, that are doing business with North Korea. We need to continue that. I think we need to expand it, and then we need to build an international coalition so that it's not just the United States sanctioning those sanctioning those Chinese entities, but also Australia, Europe, Southeast Asian allies and others, so that, again, now you have economic pain, you have military and diplomatic threshold being raised against China, to where all of those things combined force some change in their attitude towards North Korea. Because right now, China is content with the status quo. They really don't mind having a buffer state, and the collapse of the North Korean regime scares them more than all of those other factors.
Oh, great points. We have to change the calculus inside the Chinese officials going forward.
And very fast.
And quickly.
And very fast.
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Waltz, thanks a lot. Appreciate your expertise.
Okay, thanks a lot.